Hello, boss.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
How you know? How fun? How you doing?
I'm okay. I'm good. How's been your day?
Ah, it's been good though. It's been good. Not
Nice,
that
nice. Do you work remotely? Or do you work on site?
hybrid.
I see. Two, three
So
days.
3 days, but the 3 days is still flexible, not that rigid. Well, maybe because of Misha, I don't go to the office on time. I don't I don't go to the office on time and we can leave early as well.
Enjoyment.
But yeah,
Nice.
but you see the extra work now. Do a
I
lot of
get
work.
it.
There's no closing time, that's the downside. Like now I have to when I'm done here, I have to do some work.
Oh, wow. Hi,
Yep.
Dara.
Hi
Hi.
there.
Nice to have
Hi,
you.
TT. Hi, TY. Hi, Bukayo. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Yep, yep. So, just gonna hang tight for a few more persons to join in, and then we can begin. I've been looking forward to this, and I didn't want it to be missed for any reason. So, okay. Hi, Praise. How you doing? How did your day go? Hi, Kui. How you doing?
Hi, hi. How you doing?
I'm very well. How did your day go?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. How was yours?
It was good. It was good. Worked on site.
Crazy. I was at home as usual.
Lucky you.
Yeah, hope you're not battling with all this fuel issue and stuff.
All those what?
Fuel issue.
Oh, not at all. Not at all.
Alright
I mean,
then.
not this week. Yeah. Hi, Ugo. How you doing?
Hi, good evening. How are you?
Fine. How have you been?
It's been a very busy and hectic couple of weeks, but I'm surviving. I'm alive. How are you? How have you been?
I've been good. Your tone is everything. Interesting. Kelly,
Oh, thank you. I mean, I know I've been absent for a while, so I'm just like, oh God,
we're excited to
I'm
have you.
back.
We understand
Thank
how
you.
roller coaster things can be. And we're excited that you join us today. Thank you. I hope you're home and
Thank
set.
you. Yeah, so even though Phil wanted to show me Shaggy, but we thank God. God is bigger than the devil.
All right, for everyone that's just joining, we're going to be kicking off soon. In about 1 minute. Yeah, in about 1 minute. Hi, Noble. How did your day go? Thank you for joining us. Hi, Fortune. How are you doing? How did your day go? Nice. So we're kicking off in 1 minute. If you're not yet settled, get your pen, get your jotter, get your gadget. Okay, so it's go time. Hi everyone. I hope our day went well. Hi Bukayo, thank you for joining us. Thank you for making time out of your busy schedule to make this meeting happen. And thank you so much everyone that is able to join us on this busy work week. I'm super excited for today's session. We're going to be learning more about expanding into new markets from Bukayo's point of view. So unlike our regular guests and facilitators for mentoring sessions, Bukayo is not the typical salesperson, and so today we're going to be taking advantage of his point of view from the marketing standpoint, and also from an account manager standpoint. So today we're not just going to be looking at expansion into new markets from just a salesperson's point of view, and that's why I'm like super excited about today's session. Hi Bukayo, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Titi. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here and a privilege to be able to share with the team.
Yeah, thank you. So before we get in, I'm going to do a quick intro of Bukayo. Is currently the head of business, AdTech and Marketing Solution at Pisi Mobile. He is had almost a decade, of experience, and his specialty is basically in digital media, in growth, and also tech sales. Right, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be seeing things not just from the sales point of view, but also from the marketing point of view. Bukayo currently plays an important role in innovative marketing and business solutions, in his organization at the moment, and he's been instrumental in enhancing the company's offerings and driving forward the integration of advanced hard tech strategies. I know that a lot of us in our various offices like to butt heads with the marketing team a lot. So I'm hoping that by the end of today's session, we're able to gain more insight, from not just our own point of view, but from also theirs as well. Hi, Buka, you ready for us?
Yes, I'm ready and good to go.
Amazing.
Great.
So how would you like this to play out? For questions, would you like people to drop them in the chat box as you go, or would you prefer that they wait till after the session, before they give to drop it?
So you can drop it. I think we can drop the questions in the chat section, but I will most likely take them at the end of the session. Again, I think the session is an hour 30 minutes. So I
Yeah.
have a few slides, but again, it's not majorly a slide thing. It's much more of a conversation, a story, my experience, what I've seen worked, and things that we can all adopt in market expansion and also understanding, like Titia said, different views of different stakeholders for things. So that's how it's gonna go, about maybe 30, 45 minutes thereabouts for the sessions, and then I'll go on to take questions. The TT will most likely have questions for me.
All right, great. If you're just joining us for the first time, TSP community is a community for people in business roles in tech, right? Sales and all of that. This session is recorded, and the recording will be placed in the community. So if you want to join us, you can click on the link in the chat box. And we have sessions like this on a monthly basis. Yes. So thank you so much, Bukayo. If you need anything from my end, please let me know.
Not a problem. So that's fine. I'll go ahead to share my screen. Please confirm you can see my screen in full slide show mode. That's the major part.
Yeah, we can see it.
Fantastic. Great. So hi everyone. I think TT has done justice to my introduction. It's great to be here and a privilege to be able to share with everyone and from experience. So again, a conversation, like I mentioned, I always prefer that, and a panel, ask questions. Let's use use cases of your scenario, and then we pick things from there. But time. And so I've been doing this for a couple of years now, almost a decade. Putting things together from growth role to global product marketing manager to now account management, to head of sales now to head of business. And what we'll talk about today is majorly how do you expand, into new markets, and what are the points of view from a marketing and sales perspective. So let's look at the agenda. The agenda starts off with expanding into new markets, understanding that, aligning market and sales strategies, identifying the target markets, conducting market research, developing a localized go-to-market plan, and then I'll share some stories from my point of view, which will be very similar to case studies. And then we look at developing and optimizing, the sales process for new markets, and fostering collaboration between marketing and sales. And again, that's one of the biggest frictions in any B2B company. Sales and marketing, we love each other so much. And measuring success and readjusting strategies. No, so if I dive in directly, when you look at expanding into new markets, typically you want to look at business expansion or business growth. So, we have things like, market expansion, market penetration, market development, and things like that. But when we focus on expanding to a new market, it majorly means that you want to serve your current solution in a totally new market, and how can you be successful in that market with your product or your service per time. And then how are you able to use marketing and sales efforts for you to go ahead in that market? Whether it's a sales-led strategy, whether it's a product-led strategy, whether it's a marketing-led strategy. What really should you do, and how do you align that with the risk that affects the bottom line? So some of the business consideration that has to be taken per time. You need to ask yourself, and we will go in and out. I will be speaking a little bit from a business point of view as a business leader, but look at it from an ownership point of view. So not necessarily business leader, but the ownership point of view, and questions to ask. What strategy are we using? Are we using a product-led strategy or a sales-led strategy? What this basically means is you need to understand the complexity of your products and the simplicity of your products. So if you have a product that is not very complex, it's easy for people to understand, it's easy for you to onboard user. The cost of switching from the existing provider that they might have might be low. One of the things you might want to consider as a business strategy is to go with the product-led strategy. While on the sales-led strategy, on the other hand, it's typically complex. The sales cycle is typically longer. You need to speak to multiple stakeholders depending on what your product solves. So if it's a direct B2B situation, say a software that helps HR to improve processes and things like that, you could take a product-led strategy in that situation. But if you are selling something like an infrastructure business to enterprises or to mid-market segments, then your product is a little bit complex, or you're selling a very complex CRM tool, or a complex process flow tool, then a sales-led strategy would be appropriate, because you need to consider the complexity of your products. You need to do onboarding. You need to do training for them when they come on board. You need to understand the different stakeholders for a buying decision. Because typically for such products, the ticket level or the deal size is usually more expensive. So that's the first thing to consider, because that will determine how much resource will be taken into consideration for you to move into that new market. And the reason I always say this is because sometimes when it comes to management, managers just want to go for a sales-led approach directly, or they want to just go from a market-led approach instead of marketing-led approach for a new market. But when you understand that you're able to advise management, you're able to advise business leader, or you're able to take those business decisions if you are the business leader, in your organization to say you think this is the right approach for us to take. You think you need to hire this department. You think this is where you need to invest time. You need to understand that okay, demand generation is where you spend money. Hiring a BDM is where you spend money. Collaboration is where you should spend money and spend your time. That's the first question. The second question is what market segment are we aiming to capture? I think once you answer the first question right, you are able to define the second question to say, are we going for the SMEs market? Are we going for the mid market? Or are we going for the enterprise level? Determining that will then define the ICPs and the ICP you want to look at, and then the particular companies you want to look at in their markets. What I've kind of seen at times is that you might not necessarily have a mid-market strategy directly from different markets. So I'll give you an example. In my experience, you might be doing something in Nigeria and you're able to work with enterprise directly. And you go to a much bigger market and you can't directly go for enterprise because the size of the company is the size of such economy, it's a lot bigger than what you're currently used to. The size of the players in those markets are bigger. The number of the players are bigger. And then the sales cycle for an enterprise in that level different from your own enterprise is a little bit longer than what you're currently doing in your current market. So you need to look at that. So what segment are you looking to capture? You might be doing enterprise here in your current countries and you moving to a new market might be the opportunities might lie in the new markets, might lie in the SMEs. That's the second question you want to ask. The third question then looks like how do we want to kick off? Do we want to kick off directly with our presence or do we want to start off with a partnership situation? So I've seen situations where, and I'll give you again an example. So when I worked at a company, there are different market entry or go-to-market strategy that is being used in different markets. I've seen a situation where market entry strategy was actually partnership. So what was done was a white label and an exclusive partnership was done with in Europe, basically, and I'll give you country precisely, in Greece. So what we did was rather than going to the market and hire people locally, understanding the markets, there was a partner that we had worked with, without having local presence in that market, but we've been able to deliver solutions to multiple brands and multiple companies in that market. And what was done was, we just said, we want to expand into this market and we want to expand into this region. The region was the Balkan region, so the likes of Greece, Romania, and the likes of those Bolivia and those sister countries. I mean, what we did was rather than going there physically and having our presence as a product, we white labeled the solution to a top agency in that market, a top company, gave them the human resources, gave them the technical expertise, gave them the technical training that was needed for them to work with, and did a revenue share model in that situation. We own the technology, we partnered with them, they had their own team locally. So what I did was, it was able to increase sales generation without having to increase overhead of the existing resource we had in time, as well as reducing the risk exposure to regulations, understanding regulations, understanding the players in the market, developing brand credibility, loyalty, demand generation, and all of that. It was very fast for us to launch. Same thing I've seen also in where currently am. There are situations where I've seen situations where there's a product that is working in another market, and those people want to come into this country, and you partner with them, and you're able to understand the use cases that they use in their own clients, and then you adopt that to your new market immediately. So you don't have to think about what use cases, how do I experiment for that? Will there be adoption for this? Do I need to build the technology entirely myself? Can I partner on the technology and why I build the demand? Or do I partner on the demand side why I build the technology? That's another thing to consider in terms of how you want to kick off. So you can kick off the partnership, and then when you get that validation, when you get that revenue stream coming, you can then move on to then create your local presence in that market and be a competitor or be a direct presence in that market. Then the fourth question you want to ask is, how are we aiming to capture market share fast? Are we aiming to capture market share fast, or are we going in for profitability? These are really two different plays. And the reason why I say this is, you see, when you ask these questions yourself as a business leader, or you ask, I was about to say ask like this kid, or you ask business leaders when they're looking at market expansions. They might have considered it, they might not have considered this. But when you ask these questions, you let them go back to the drawing board to critically think of what they are supposed to do, critically think of the collaboration that you're looking to do together, critically think of what your responsibility is, and then critically define expectations for you when expanding into that market. Because when all of these questions are rightly answered, there's a realistic and a scientific expectation and outcome that can be defined from this. So if you're looking to capture market share, you know that you're not looking for profitability immediately. So the next thing is, do you have the resources to be able to burn for you to capture significant market share per time? Or are you playing a profitability from day one? And if you are playing the profitability from day one, that means you need to look at your margin and your depending on your pricing strategy. So what pricing strategy do you want to look at? What's the percentage of your margin? Do you want to reduce your margin? Do you want to increase your margin? Would you be competing on price or competing on value? Are you ready to say no to certain deals because you're not going for market share, but you're looking for profitability from day one? Which would then mean that there will be growth, but you wouldn't see a speedy growth where you're just looking at acquiring new customers into your bucket and driving as many deals as possible that might not be profitable to you at the pricing that you're going into that market at as well. So you need to ask that question. Are we playing a market share game? Or are we playing a profitability game going into this market? Then another question you could consider is, how do we clearly define success and failure? I think, when you ask these questions above, you would already be able to answer this question to say, what would success look like? And how are we going to define success? How are we going to define failure? Do we define success if we capture 5% or 10% market share in the next 6 months or in the next 9 months? Because at times what happens is you might enter a market and you might think you are doing well, but from a management perspective, that might not be clearly communicated to you, or that might not be doing well. And I can tell you based on my experience. So started, this entirely new business for this existing for my company right now. And we've been having month-on-month growth, except in July for several, several reasons. But we've been having month-on-month growth. But the month-on-month growth hasn't hit, certain expectations. But the thing is, it's still a success to some extent. And how management is measuring success is growth, not necessarily how much are you able to generate. We're doing actual growth with the limited resource that we have in terms of human capacity, because that's really where we're lacking. We're growing that now. I had somebody this month at the second, last month, second person joined this month. Someone is joining next week for the new month, and we're growing. And the team growth is definitely going to see, a growth on an expansion level when it comes to revenue as well. So you need to clearly define that. It's success going to be market share. It's success if you hit your targets. It's success if there's a better share of voice in the market for your brand. You need to define that. Most of the time, people just talk about success can be revenue. That's what we see most of the time as a salesperson. But understanding what the business needs to do, and I can tell you based on my experience that even if we're not directly hitting the targets that we want to hit on a monthly basis, I can tell you that we are still calling what we're doing our efforts as a success, because there is a month-on-month growth. There is experimentations to find what works, what doesn't work. There is onboarding of new clients, all with limited resources than what we had planned in the beginning of the year. So that's something you need to get clear very well. Another thing would then be, is there an existing demand, or are we creating the market demand? So when I say this, it majorly means, are you the first player in the market, or are there existing players there? Because if you are the market definer, the market pioneer in that new market, and I'll tell you why. There are certain markets right now that for example, our solutions, when it comes to programmatic, they don't have that in those markets. And if we expand to that market, we need to understand that we're not going to immediately start generating a lot of revenue, because there's a lot of market education that needs to be done first before we can have product adoption. Then after product adoption, before you can start looking at revenue generation. Compared to a market that already has existing players and existing market maturity, for us to then see how are we going to display and what's the cost of switching for people in that market at the moment. This is a very strategic point of view, but I think it's very critical than just going to try and sell to say, I want to expand into Kenya or Uganda or South Africa, and let's go and take our products. Who are we selling to in Nigeria? We're selling to banks, we're selling to fintechs, and we're selling to I'm trying to think of something, infrastructure business. So you just go to market and say, where are the infrastructure business in this country? Where are the banking situations? What's our pricing for them? Let me try and code email them. Let me try and find connections in terms of warm introduction that can be done from peers or connections. Let me say I send them LinkedIn. You can do that, but you need to ask these questions and you need to get clarity before you start doing those things, in my opinion. Then the next question is, how much are we investing into the projects against the sunk costs? So the reason for this is to say, when do you define success or failure? And then how much are you investing in it? Because there's this sunk cost fallacy, like, we're quite familiar with, when you invested so much in a new market and you don't want to cut your losses immediately. But if you clearly define how much you want to invest, and you clearly define the timeline, and you clearly define what success or failure looks like, you can cut costs even if you spend 100 million in that new market and you know it's not working. But if you don't clearly define how much you're spending, you might then say you spend 50 million and you think that that's the problem. But meanwhile, you actually need to spend around 70 to 100 million before you can start measuring anything. Or on the other hand, you spend 100 million and you think that because you spent a lot of money, or the business has invested a lot of money in terms of money and efforts. And when I say how much, I mean the resources generally, not just financial resources, human resources, either from existing team or from new talent, financial resources, as well. So those two perspectives of things. If you also clearly define this, you definitely know when you've invested amount of money and something is not working, and you pull out without having to think about sunk cost fallacy to say, I spent a lot of money, or I spent a lot of my time on this market. I can't call it quits now. And I've seen this happen a lot. And then you now come up with different, proposal, pricing strategy, and all of that become quite ridiculous. To be honest, and the best thing for you to do is actually to just cut your losses and move on to another market that you think. So we then go on to the next slide. We then talk about how are you going to align your marketing and sales strategy once you've answered these business questions and these business considerations. You've clearly understood what market you want to go for, the resources to commit in terms of financial and human resources and departmental resources, from new talent to existing talent, as well. You understand what approach you want to take from the sales-led perspective. You understand what go-to-market you want to use, whether it's a partnership, whether it's sales-led, whether you want to hire salespeople in that market on part-time, and all of that. So you then sit down with these two departments that are lovely, that like fighting, but still love each other so much, which is marketing and sales. And I've been on both sides of things. I've seen marketing not understanding sales as an account manager and a senior account manager. And I've seen sales not understanding the importance of creating processes and operations. And I can tell you, because what we see as people is that we say marketing does not understand. Like, why can't you make compromise here? Why can't you understand that things doesn't work like this in the actual environment, in the actual real world? Because they're sitting behind the laptop and they don't have sales targets to some extent. While marketing, on the other hand, is thinking, these guys are bringing people in, and these people are churning very fast. And I'm measuring what this is happening here. It's the churn rate is high. We're not retaining these clients, or I'm driving a lot of inbound leads for them, but they're not closing these people. They're not following up as fast as possible, and those leads are getting cold. So you basically need to align what are our shared goals, what are you supposed to do, and what metrics are you supposed to track, and how am I going to contribute to the metrics that matters to your bottom line. So when marketing understands the bottom line of sales and sales understand the bottom line of marketing, you're able to find a middle ground for things to work here from both MQL, SQL, time to lead, conversion, the win rate, time of follow-up, frequency of follow-ups, and all of that. Because these are two different goals for two different departments, and you need to find a middle ground. So then looking at it from a customer-centric approach. When I say customer-centric approach, this is a very much more marketing point of view. Marketing wants to understand that, the clients understand the products. The client is not just buying what they don't fully understand. The onboarding process of the clients is very smooth so that you can have a higher retention. You clearly define the user away from the customer, which means when sales typically close a deal and the customer, which is the decision makers, make a payment, they don't just hands off to customer success team without clear definition. But they work with customer success very clearly to make sure that the users of the product on the other side actually understand how to use the product, and the customer success is able to do a very clear job of onboarding those people and checking the frequency of how they use the product. Because what happens is, if that is not clearly done, the customer, in terms of the paying person on the client side, would ask the user, which is also on the client side, what's the benefit of that product? And if the benefit of the product is low in terms of the NPS score or the frequency of usage, they will churn. And if it churns, marketing will measure that churn rate is high. Sales will come and say that customer success is not doing a very great job of onboarding, but sales will not follow up with customer success to make sure that that's being done properly on that side of things. So you need to have a customer centric approach for both departments. And then the next thing is open line of communication. And the reason for this is most of the time, sales feel like marketing is hounding them on communications and what they need to do. And sales is giving marketing a lot of feedback when it comes from a product perspective or a marketing approach perspective or a marketing communication perspective of how to generate, demand in the market, so that when they are starting to speak with prospects, they have heard of the business or they've heard of the solution, and then are able to, pick it up from there. You need to clearly define timeline of how you communicate. So, and I'll give you from my experience. What we usually do that time is at least once every 2 weeks or once a week, marketing would jump on a call with a salesperson, and the marketing professional wouldn't see anything, wouldn't do anything. We just sit on the call from prospecting to deal closure at different points in the sales cycle to understand what is sales selling, what is the question, what are the questions the customer is asking. Are there certain documents that they can prepare for sales enablement, like case studies, like success stories, like objection handling documents that would aid sales personnel's job? Or can we build an email marketing sequence? Do we want to improve our code outreach and improve the sequences so that sales is able to do better? That's been done. That's an open line of communication. And also, another situation I've also seen and how sales give marketing feedback is we used to have a Slack channel called Sales Feedback for Marketing and Products. And what that does is whatever feedback sales has, they drop right there. They drop on that channel. There is nothing stupid. There is nothing too small to ask. And there's a framework for salespeople to give that feedback, because it makes it very easy for marketing, and also makes it very objective for salespeople, so that they don't feel like they're giving, the team feedback and marketing is not doing anything or product is not doing anything. You hear me say product and marketing because it intersects from different points. There's a marketing department, there's a product marketing department, and there's also a product department. So most of them, you have to collaborate over time. And from my point of view, product marketing is the core that really works with sales when it comes to B2B side of things. So, so when we then create that channel, we create a framework which is very similar to an experimentation framework for salespeople. And the thing is, they drop the feedback from the market, which is market feedback, whether on the products, whether on the processes, whether on the pricing, whether on the documents and all of that. They drop the feedback, they drop the impact, and they drop the timeline of the impact to revenue. So what that does is, on a weekly basis, all of that data is collated by marketing and product team. Then that is prioritized to say, based on this feedback, what do we want to work on this month? What is the actual most important thing? So there's something very, very similar to ICE model. I think most of us will be quite conversant with the ICE model, which basically look like, impact. I'm trying to remember the full meaning again. ICE model for experimentation. What's it again? Impacts. Can't remember. But basically, what the ICE model looks like is there's an impact. What's the impact to it? What's the contribution to the business? And I can't remember the last E. But that framework makes it objective for both sales and marketing. And there's full transparency on the communication line. So there's accountability shared, there is open communication. Same thing goes for lead generation. Sales marketing is able to help sales with generating leads, depending on what the size of your company looks like and what the size of the business looks like, and also the type of business. So marketing invests in generating quality leads, and then they are able to work with sales on those type of leads. So it could be a bi-weekly meeting that's set up with sales to say we've generated 100 leads, but we've seen that only maybe like 10 are actually are the real opportunities generated from here. Or out of the 100 we generated, we only qualified 20 as an SQL in terms of an actual opportunity. Could you give us feedback on why you were only able to qualify 20? Is there something we are doing wrong? How can we do things better so that we spend the budget much more efficiently? And if your marketing team is not doing that, I always recommend that you set up that meeting so you give them that feedback, because that will make their efforts be better. They will give you quality leads, because when you give them, oh, you guys are sending me 100 leads, but the 100 leads is not really meeting because I'm not able to get good opportunities. Maybe we only book like 5 meetings from that or 3 meetings from that kind of things. So when you tell them, oh, the businesses you go for are not wrong, the ICP is not clearly defined, even if you go to the ICP that we actually define as our business, but the business size in terms of how much they spend monthly doesn't meet our minimum requirements, because our ticket size or our deal size is $5,000 and above. So all of that information will help marketing to then do a proper segmentation to say at the point of lead generation and the qualification score, the qualification questions, asking things like what's your typical budget size, $5,000 to $10,000, $10,000 to $25,000. Do you currently have a solution similar to these? Or what's the size of your company? When marketing takes that feedback from sales, they properly filter the leads that are being sent to sales. Because what that then does is you don't have to talk to your 100 leads, you don't have to try and reach out to 100 people where only very few percentage of them really are the ones you qualify as an opportunity for you. But if they reduce the number of leads and sending you 40, and out of that 40 or 50, you are actually able to define 30 or 25 as an actual opportunity before you then go to try and book meetings and things like that. It improves your own bottom line as well, because you're able to get better leads, you're able to get better opportunities, and you're able to close more deals. So that open line of communication has to be there, that objectivity has to be there, and that frequency has to be there. So we then move on to identifying target markets. I think this is again a little bit. So some parts of this presentation I'll spend a lot more time on, while some parts I'll be able to go faster. So the first thing you want to do when you're looking at a new market is, what's the market research? What are the potentials in the market? What are the opportunities of growth? I think I've spoken a little bit about this in the first slide. Your market segmentations, who are the actual people you want to go for? So the ICP, banking, fintech, or it's a software company, is it infrastructure business, is it brands, is it marketing agencies, is it I'm just thinking of different, is it betting clients? Are you selling a betting software, a bookmaker? Are you selling, crypto solutions? Are you creating solutions for HR professionals? Quite a number of things. So you basically want to segment your ICPs by market first, and then when you not segment by the market segments you want to go for in terms of the actual people, then you can then decide the players in those markets in terms of the stakeholders. So who is the decision maker, who is the influencer, who is the champion? How do I go into this? What's their buying decision? What's the typical sales cycle for this? How do I influence this? Are they younger people? Are they millennials? Are they baby boomers? Are they Gen X? Where do they spend time? Where should I spend most of my time and things like that? And we then go to target market selection. I think we've spoken about this to some extent when I was talking about, are you going for mid markets? Are you going for enterprise level? Are you going for early markets like the small businesses where you want to they have lower ticket sizes, but you want to play a volume game? Or you want to go for enterprise where the ticket size is bigger, the deal size is bigger, and you necessarily don't have volume to deal with. But the competition might be stiffer on that angle, or it might not be stiffer. Again, but the cost of switching might be bigger for those people. So how do you convince them to switch? Do you make it easy for them to integrate their current solutions into your own solution? When it comes to integrations and things like that, you need to consider that. I think it goes. We then talk about conducting market research. I think I've spoken about competitors analysis. What are the strengths for you? What are your weaknesses? What I typically do is, from a marketing point of view, again, follow me. So what I typically do is a table. We list. So there are situations where we either want to launch a new product in the existing market, or you want to expand an existing product into new markets, which is the focus of this conversation, is to then look at the players in those markets. Player A to player A, B, and C and D. I then talk about the value propositions. So I will now list a table of 5 value props and then say, what are we really doing differently? And I start to tick yes for us, X for them, yes for them, X for us. When that is clearly defined, I then know what I'm going to lead with in my value proposition. I'll tell you, for example, when it comes to a business like VAS, let me give an example. It's a very price sensitive market. So the cost per acquisition for your solution and to them is the most important thing. Why for some other businesses, what is important for them is not the pricing, but actually the value that your business does, the how your business helps them to save on overhead, how your business helps them to save on processes, how your business helps them to increase productivity. So they don't mind paying more. So you need to clearly define that and then find opportunities in those gaps. And that's where you want to play in. And then also get customer insights. So how do you gather the customer needs? What are their preferences? What are their purchasing behavior? Let me give you an example. I'm trying to make a payment today for a new client that we onboarded, and we want to run a campaign for them. But I don't want to pay in dollars because I can create my account in dollars and pay in dollars. But I want to pay in naira. But if I want to do the same campaign in South Africa, which I want to run, I would have to pay in dollars because I can't pay in rands, even if the client will pay me in rands. So I then need to consider the forex risks and the consumer behavior. But if I bill that person in dollars, they are just going to disappear from me because that's not a very prior situation for them when it comes to purchasing decision. Unlike in Nigeria, where depending on your product, people will pay you in naira or they pay in dollars. They don't. I mean, most businesses want to pay you in naira, but they don't mind paying you in dollars depending on the problem you solve and how big the problem you solve for them is. And then you go to a marketing point of view, you need to collaborate with marketing to say, what's our product development strategy? What's our marketing messaging? What product positioning are we going for? What market? So what are we positioning for? How are we talking to them? What resources have we created? Have we created dedicated pages on the website? Or have you, if I'm going into somewhere like Russia, we know it's a Russian speaking country, or if you want to expand it to francophone market, and I can tell you this for free, that those guys, the consumer insight there is that if you want to expand into the francophone market, you need French. Even though they understand English to some extent, I can tell you that they are more likely to buy from a French-speaking person. Just because you speak French, they are willing to give an opportunity. And I've seen this happen when we expanded from my current, when I was senior account manager and account manager in my role in the past, and we're moving from West Africa, 1 or 2 countries French speaking, and we're going to the entire Central Africa, not just West Africa. So we're looking at Senegal, Ivory Coast, which is in West Africa, and we're also looking at places like Congo Brazzaville, Congo Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Congo Brazzaville, to Gabon, and places like that. It was highly important to make sure that our website, one, can automatically translate to French when they visit. 2, we couldn't go and present an English deck, even if they understood English. We needed to make the deck in French for them to understand that. 3, the fact that you can speak French alone in terms of in purchasing behavior gives you 2 times more likely to close a deal just because you can. Like, I'll present the same solution. You present the same solution. You speak English, I speak French. I'm more likely to get the deal just because they feel much more absorbed to you. So you need to understand that. Then market trends, I think that's quite explanatory. What's the nature of the markets? I'll give you an example. When we wanted to enter the market with programmatic advertising, we realized that even though in countries like Nigeria and South Africa, Kenya, was a much more advanced market when it comes to that solution. We realized that in some other West African countries and Central African countries that are mostly French speaking, where they spend their money on was just Meta and Google. That's all they spend 95% of their budget on. So they don't even optimize for the best results. They have problems with restrictions, like if you have an alcoholic brand, they only run campaigns on very out of home in terms of outside, and they really can't run on Google and Meta because of restriction reasons and things like that. So we wanted to enter that. We understood that those were the major people who were competing in that market. And how are we able to get those market share? Is the next thing we understood. So we then needed to start up with education before we could now start to see adoption. So we did webinars, we did offline events, explaining how things work for them, why they need to consider other inventories, and how that's able to contribute to their entire marketing funnel and the solutions that we do have in programmatic advertising and things like that, and how it affects them. So we needed to understand the market trends, we needed to understand the industry and the technological advancements. The other markets the market we were currently in was much more advanced than them when it comes to technology advancements. So you need to take that into consideration when you're looking at it, because you'll be surprised that even though you think they need it, they might have no idea what you do or how it works. And if you are not going to be willing to educate them and understand that, it will be slow in the beginning for them to understand it. And when they understand it, they now begin to give it a try. When you now give it a try and it's validated before you now begin to get more budgets per time. So for example, you have 3 tier levels. You have basic, you have professional, and you have enterprise. You might need to educate them on if you might need to change your strategy in that market from fully paid to going on a freemium model for these markets, to say, because of the lack or the timeline in terms of they are slightly behind in technology advancement, we might need to use a freemium model here. You need to have a free plan, but limit what they can access on our solution. And then when we educate them, they test it, they see it works, we now upsell them. So marketing point of view, we now start focusing on generating acquisition and generating people to know what people do, then get them to sign up and use the product for free, and also drive offline workshops, webinars for you to educate people on. Do you understand? So people on freemium model will try and then come on webinars, understand how the products work. Then sales will now move on to try and upsell those people when they see somebody has hit a roadblock. Do you understand? To get them to upgrade, whether from a product perspective or from a sales level perspective, quite different. That's something just to consider there. Wow, 46 minutes already. My slide is too long. I need to speed up. So the next thing you need to do is develop a localized marketing plan. So how do you take culture into context? I'll give you an example. Whether we like it or not, certain countries are still racist more than certain countries. And we need to take that into consideration, the kind of people that speaks to them and how you're able to get that in the fall. So you need to find the influencers. What is the culture in this market? I'll give you an example. In Nigeria, there's this bad behavior in B2B. Is this session recorded first? Let me know. Okay, it's recorded.
Yes.
I will not. Yes, there's I don't see anything. It's recorded. So I would say in Nigeria, we have our peculiarities. Let me use that word. We have our peculiarities to deal closure. And I think we're quite familiar with those peculiarities, where the person standing to sign off on the document or for you to switch, there might be some personal, there's something we call it with my colleague, vested interest for those people. So it's not necessarily what your solution can do. It's not that your solution is not better. It's not that your pricing is not better. It's not that it doesn't increase listen. But you need to understand the cultural sensitivity and nuances for different markets. So when there's vested interest, there's nothing you can do. You have to find how are you going to navigate the vested interest. So allow me to, if you know, you know. So you need to understand that cultural nuances, and you go to other markets, and I can tell you for free. And this is me that I've operated in European market, I've operated in African market. Like when I say Africa, I mean Africa entirely. I think slightly in the north, but majorly in West Africa, in Central Africa, in East Africa, in Southern Africa. As you run for president, right? I mean, you trust me, when you start fighting battles, internal and external, you choose the battles to win and the battles not to win. I mean, I changed the client from March or February and I closed them this month or August. And vested interest, are certain blockers you need to find a way. So European markets, CIS markets, the Balkan region. So CIS markets are, places like Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, Armenia, and all of that. The cultural sensitivity is different. They don't particularly care about vested interest in those places. So if you are trying to pitch there and using vested interest, they just look at you like, who is this guy? Do you get? Why for some markets it's innovation, some markets it's finding somebody like them to sell to them. I can tell you. It's sad, but it is the truth. How do you find somebody like them to sell to them? Or it might be a language barrier. So you also need to think about that. The next point is language adaptation. I think this is purely direct. When we started to go into other markets, we then needed to have a plugin that automatically translates the websites when you visit the websites, because when you visit the website from different countries, it will show you the language that is relevant to you. So whether you are visiting from Russia, you flag the IP and it converts that page to a Russian speaking country. If you're visiting from Germany, it will convert it to German. If you're visiting from Nigeria, it's converted to Nigeria. If you're visiting from a Francophone region, it's converted to French. And from a marketing plan point of view, it was a lot of work that we had to do there, because after we found the plugin and we tested that it fired well, we then needed to find a native speaking person in those regions to then read all the pages on the website to make sure that it's incoherent. Because if it's not incoherent, you know how auto translate can work at times, but we'll look context. If I say, for example, now in Nigeria to say, how we can say, and this happened a lot because when I used to work on my former job and I work with many people, and I say it's a normal English slang, but it means a totally different thing than in Nigeria. You need to take that into context as well. So that's another thing that we did. So you need to plan that from a marketing point of view as well as from a sales point of view. The sales person has to have that, yes, coherent. Mobola, English is not my first language. See, language barrier. The local channels, you need to think about the local channels. How do you implement the local channels in that country? Do you understand how it works? What's the user behavior? Are people much more LinkedIn in those channels? Are people much more offline, direct marketing or direct sales? How do you get them? Are you getting there's a certain markets that you can sell certain products of $2,000 and they're going to buy, or $500, solution, and they're going to buy with a product-less approach or a sales-led approach. It's pretty easy for people to make that decision. And there are some markets that, remember, before you get us $500 subscription, you need to do many meetings, and you need to actually see people. So people won't pay you until you come to their office. Some people won't pay you until they see that, okay, this person has I've tried to, there was a client we tried to close, and everything has been done and everything. And the last step was they wanted to come and meet us in the office to confirm that it was an actual office and there are actual people before they give us money. And there are some other markets that they don't need that. They found you, they see your website, it's easy for them to make payment. Okay, fine, they understand your pricing, you sold it to them. You send them an invoice and you close the deal. So you need to understand that and what channels to use to do that precisely. And then partnership. I think I've spoken to partnership in the beginning. How do you go to markets? Do you want to use partnership marketing, or do you want to use direct sales instead of sales-led approach? So I won't dwell on that too much because of my time. You know how I try to say I'm going to do something for 45 minutes and it's already 53 minutes into it. So let me give you an example in my career. So there was a time, so this is story. There was a time we were trying to launch, I was planning a webinar, and it was going to be a webinar for, I'm trying to remember. It was going to be a webinar for the CIS region. So the CIS region is Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Russia, Kyrgyzstan, Moldova, Turkmenistan, and all of that. So those guys. But I can tell you, and I was going to use two people to take a topic. Someone from, again, it's recorded. Okay, it's fine. You didn't hear from Bukayo. But I was going to use two facilitators on our product to take a topic. One person was a white person. I think she was from Morocco. And then we had somebody from Africa as well. But it's a black person. And The direct feedback is that these people are not going to listen to somebody that does not look like them. Because it is sad. It is really sad, actually, and it's not something that we should peddle. It's not something we should encourage, to be honest. But there are things that you need to factor into it. So the thing is now, how do you find the balance as a marketer and a salesperson? Find somebody that looks like them, but also somebody that's able to do the job. It's the reality of things. I like to say what is and what ought to be are two different things. What you need to do in that situation is to find the middle ground, is what can be. So what ought to be is on one end, then what is one end, then the middle ground is what can be, in terms of something that both parties can live with. And that's what I had to do. I had to find what can be. It's sad, but it is what it is. Second thing, I think I've given my story on Francophone already to some extent in terms of French speaking, French barrier. English is it's not something that they are quite receptive to. And what we had to do was convert the website to make sure that it's actually French speaking and is that adoption from that angle. Also, all our decks had to be converted to French in terms of our sales deck, and we had to hire locally a business development manager in that market in Cameroon, and the person was in charge of working in that region. So in Ivory Coast, in Senegal, in Cameroon, in Gabon, the French-speaking person had to communicate that and understood the cultural nuances, understood where to push, where not to push, how to get the deal, what the actual blocker is. So that's my second story for Francophone. And I can tell you that the first 6 months to 9 months was a lot of market education. But right now, the last time I checked, I realized that they were doing about $40,000 to $50,000 in sales month on month. And when we started in that market, now me so far we did do $500 deal. The entire this thing was like $1,500 or $2,500 in the total monthly sales that is closed. And that market is in 40, 50K now over the span of about 3-4 years. But you see, having this question and understanding how to measure it, and when you ask those right business consideration questions in the beginning, will make you clearly define it. Because if you don't understand the nuances in these different regions, you will not be able to define clearly what success is and when you failed, or what the approach to take to in that market should look like for your solution. Or you could change your approach so that you can start closing more deals from the beginning. Maybe you don't want to take that solution. Maybe you want to take a different solution. Maybe you want to white label a totally different solution to sell that market. You need to clearly understand that from a marketing and from a sales perspective. Because what that does is marketing is able to collaborate with sales to develop sales collaterals, like proposals, like case studies, like reports, like white papers, like creating webinars that would educate the market. So marketing knows what they're supposed to do in that situation. Then sales, on the other hand, understands I need to get on ground. I need to be able to convince them to make switches. We are going to switch. I need to develop an objection handling handbook because they're going to have a lot of objections. How do I answer that? How do I anticipate that? What's my pricing strategy in collaboration with the product team to enter into that market? You need to clearly understand how you are going to do that as a salesperson. Wow, we are about to hit the hour. So I'm going to speed up. Optimizing sales processes for new markets. So what you might need to do is you might need to train your sales team differently to understand the local dynamics, the product knowledge in that situation, and then the cultural nuances, like I mentioned, so that they can effectively sell well. The second thing is local sales channel. How do you sell locally? Do you need to meet distributors, marketplaces, exhibitions, or can you sell online, generate those things online, or do you need to go for workshops and trainings offline, or do you need to go for exhibitions and trade shows, depending on what you're selling? Or can you generate, your leads directly online for people to adopt that? So you don't even need a market presence physically to sell what you're trying to sell. You can get meeting bookings and sell directly from that. You need to understand that. Then what's your pricing strategy? I think I mentioned to you that you might have a different pricing plan. For example, let me give you one. This is a product-led perspective, but it also helps the market sales because The pricing for Netflix in Nigeria is not the pricing for Netflix in US, like we're all quite familiar with. So there's Netflix mobile, there's Netflix premium, there's Netflix, I think Ultra, which will give you access to, Ultra HD and all of that. But in the US, Ultra HD is almost like a typical thing because they don't have problem with internet connection per se, and they're able to buy data. They have access to broadband easily. So they can stream high definition content easily without having to think about that. So you need to think about that consideration. For our products, for us, our pricing, do you have tier level pricing? Is it pricing that we do have, is it too cheap that some people will feel like maybe these guys are not real, or is it too expensive that people cannot come in? Do we need to do market education where we need to change from a purely request a demo pricing strategy to actually offer tiers to say there is a basic plan where they self-service, and then there is an enterprise where they need to request a demo for the complexity of your product? Do you want to offer a free trial and not a freemium product where it's a 14-day timeline? You give them the entirety of what you're supposed to do because it's quite rigorous, and they need to be able to use the entire solution to really get the value of what you do, because the freemium product will not work in situation depending on your product or your solution. I'll give you an example. I'm currently considering Tableau right now against Power BI in my business, and we are connecting when it comes to analysis of certain products and certain clients we have in our business. I need to make a business intelligence decision. What's the churn? What's the average frequency of a user before they churn as a business leader? And then understand that to make a buying decision and make an investment decision. For that, I need to actually request tech to go directly to database, pull in that data, pull out that data out for me. Then I now send that to Excel. Then I now start plotting all of that. Compared to Power BI, which can do that same solution, but Power BI has some complexity and not so easy to use. And the visualization, I don't think, is the best, in my opinion. But I'm using Tableau right now. But for me to use Tableau, I need to connect Tableau to our database, which is my SQL with the tech team. So get the tech team to connect to my SQL, feed all of that data into it, and I'll build dashboard that can help me to make business decisions myself. And also then create viewer looks to be able to give reporting access to our clients to several things that we do for them as an infrastructure business, and how their revenue is going down, or where they can improve things, the business intelligence decision they can do based on that solution that we're able to do. But if Tableau gave me a free trial and doesn't give me an encompassing solution using free trial, so giving freemium, I will not be able to actually use it and make an informed decision. But using a free trial will let me use it entirely, validate that it does what I need it to do, then move on to now make a buying decision from there. So you need to think about your pricing strategy and your pricing framework. Because most of the time when we think about pricing strategy, people usually think about the pricing level, which means, is it too expensive or is it too cheap? But sometimes it could be product bundling and product unbundling. Do you want to bundle that solution with other things in the market? And that would help you set you apart. So if people are buying solution A year solution, B year solution, 3 C year, if you bundle all of that together, would that make it better for people to buy from you? Or do you want to unbundle the product because your product is like a $5,000 or a $3,000 product solution, and in that market it's quite steep for people to afford that in the one go? So do you want to take a product unbundling situation in your pricing strategy as a salesperson? You give the feedback to the team, then the pricing is then relooked to say, okay, let's defragment our product, let's give solution out of our entire solution, let's break it into A, B, and C. So we give this pricing tier to this segment, this pricing tier to that segment, this pricing tier to that segment. That way you're able to get adoption and get people to sign up at different levels, and then also then try to upsell them as they continue to grow as a business. So fostering collaboration between marketing and sales, I think I've been quite clear that the need for regular communication. You need to think about sales enablement effort from a marketing perspective. How can you help sales with case studies? How can you be success stories for them, whether in videos, posting that on LinkedIn, putting that on where people actually spend time, so that when sales are actually at the point of interacting with people, they've seen your case study, they've seen your brand, they've interacted with it, there's a higher brand recall for them, and then it increases the possibility of them closing a deal, or it could actually be demand generation for them. So there's demand generation is, you're creating demand for salespeople and driving inbound for them to, pick up that lead, qualify those leads, and then define it as an opportunity for them to chase for meeting bookings and then the entire sales process typically. So webinars, offline merch, event marketing, exhibition. How are you as a marketing person finding exhibitions that salespeople should be at? How can they go for them? Because most of the time, what I see is that these exhibitions, since people find it themselves, or marketing don't actually think about that. I'll give you an example. In my experience, what we did was, before we got into the new year, we looked at all the regions we were in and said, these are all the events for your region. We've created all of these lists. Look at it as a salesperson and tell us which one you want to attend. Tell us which one you think it's important, which one is not that important. We would also invest in it as a partner. We will give you, once you can invest a marketing budget there. We then give you access to one, can get the banner, can get a stand if it's an exhibition, if it's a conference, we can get you to go for that conference. We pay for it as a marketing investment. If it's a speaking opportunity, driving thought leadership and things like that, brand presence, products, market education, the ones that are important, we get you speaking engagement, we apply for them as marketing so that you can get them to speak. All of those things will be done ahead of the year, and it helps sales. Marketing helps sales in that way, and you're working together as a team. There's a collaboration between marketing and sales. So it's not, this is my work, marketing, or sales, this is my work. This is how we have to work together to achieve the bottom line that needs to be achieved. So credit sharing. Credit sharing is where, the wala usually happens most of the time. Sales say they did this, marketing says they contributed in this way. I think what needs to be measured here is the contribution of each party. Marketing is able to contribute in certain extent, and sales is able to contribute in closing those deals. So what needs to be done is that the management has to clearly define the contribution level and the contribution percentages for different deals at time. So measuring success quite different. So the goals, the marketing metrics, and the sales metrics. At the point of pipeline creation, marketing is looking at things like demand generation, what's the share of voice in the market, how many marketing qualified leads are we sending to sales. Sales is looking at all of the MQLs that marketing is sending to me, which ones are actually sales qualified leads, which ones are actually opportunities. What's the ratio of the MQLs to the SQLs? How many deals are we creating? What's your pipeline to target ratio? I typically say you need to understand how many deals you need to have in your pipeline to hit your KPI. So typically, it's usually a minimum of around 3 to 1. So if you are targeting $100,000, you need to have like $300,000 in your pipeline if you're going to meet that target at all. So you need to understand what your pipeline to target ratio is. If you don't have that, I would advise you to check that. It will help you to really hit your numbers, and also helps you to communicate very clearly where you need marketing to help you to improve things, depending on what strategy your company takes. Whether they have a marketing department that does that for you, or it's a fully salesperson that is outbound for you to work there, and not a combination of both inbound and outbound. Then the ratio of inbound and outbound, you need to check that yourself. Are the deals you are closing, are they heavy on inbound, or are they heavy on outbound? How are you able to find that balance? Is your product something that, okay, maybe there's an 80 to 20% or 70 to 30% where most of the deals you are creating are actually, coming from inbound efforts from marketing, 70%. So you then look at it, I need to actually increase my outbound efforts. So how do I increase my outbound efforts? How do I actually get more people that I'm pushing that by myself, which will then increase the number of deals you're able to have in your pipeline, and then directly increase the number of deals you're able to close at the end of the month. So goals like revenue generation, marketing is looking at the inbound deal win rate. So the number of inbounds they're generating, how many people are actually converting. So the win rate, if I'm generating 100, how many people actually convert to a paying client? And that's why I said, that open line of communication must be there between marketing and sales. So that sales is able to give marketing that feedback, and marketing is able to improve the quality of inbound they are being sent to sales. And sales doesn't feel like marketing is wasting their time with the quality of people they're sending to them. As well as the conversion rate. So when it comes to conversion rate, basically it's the campaigns they are running, how much are they able to do better for the leads generated. And with sales perspective, when it comes to revenue generation, it's revenue directly. How much deal am I closing? What's my win rate? Definitely, in terms of the ratio of deal won to deal lost. What's my average deal size? If my average deal size 2,000, 3,000. If my average deal size 10,000. Check that month on month. Am I growing my average deal size, or is it going down, or how do I grow it? To customer satisfaction. Marketing will typically look like net promoter score, which is the NPS, as well as the customer lifetime value. How much does the customer typically spend with us before they churn? We try to understand that, so that helps them to understand how much investment they're able to do and how far they're able to pay for a marketing lead for inbound marketing. So you can find out that the customer lifetime value is actually, $10,000 before the churn. And they're typically spending maybe $100 per acquisition today. And they think that that's expensive. But if the LCV is high, maybe they can spend as high as $500 to get that person in, because the customer lifetime value is $10,000. So they'll still make the money back to some extent. Do you understand? So it's not just on one sale, but on the frequency, because each deal size might be $1,000, but the lifetime value might be $10,000. So they might not think that if it's $1,000 for a deal and we spend $500, that's half. It eats into the margin of the business. But if they understand the lifetime value, and you also understand that lifetime value, they are able to do much more investment from the customer acquisition part of it in terms of inbound lead generation efforts, because they can measure that. Then as a salesperson, you want to check things like renewal rates. How often are they renewing, and what's the retention of the clients? Then you also want to check the ratio of new business versus your existing business. Are you making most of your targets from existing business? It's not bad, but you need to keep a ratio of around 60 to 40, which means you need to bring in 60%, 60 to actually 70%. I mean, 70% needs to be renewing, and you need to do at least 30% new businesses, so that you can keep filling your pipeline and increasing your revenue as a business. The last thing to consider when you're expanding into market is risk and mitigations. There's a regulatory risk. In Nigeria, you need to think about people like, for example, in marketing space and an AdTech space, people like APA, people like Advan, people like Akon, and all of that. If you're practicing in the European stage, you need to get NICDP, NIDP. I think that's Nigerian Institute of Data and Privacy, NIDPRS in Nigeria. But that's different from when I'm practicing in Europe. Their laws are quite different. The kind of marketing campaigns that can be run are different. The kind of retargeting you can do is different. The kind of cold email outreach you can do as a salesperson is different in those regions compared to in other regions. You need to understand that very clearly, so that your company doesn't get penalized and doesn't get fined in the future. Then you think about the brand reputation and credibility risk. Do you want to start small and expand gradually, or do you want to start very fast and let everybody know your name while you're still experimenting? In my opinion, I think you should always start small and expand gradually as a mitigation. Then talent. When you expand into a new market, I would say get validated talent before getting talent that has enthusiasm and it's willing to do things in that market. So you want to get a salesperson that, one, has a network in that market, two, has the experience of closing deal. So kick off with validated talent. Whether you are the business leader doing the hiring, or you are the actual salesperson expanding into that market, you want to start networking with similar people that have those networks, that can do warm introduction for you, or find complementary or adjacent solutions. So my solution might be doing A, but I need B in addition to doing my solution. So you find B. So let me give an example. You have an EMS. EMS is like email marketing software, and it is Zapier. So if you want to enter that market as an EMS, you can find Zapier, which is a adjacent solution that can help with automation of several things. Do webinars with them, do things with them. They have distribution, they have market credibility, they have talent, they are validated in that market. You have that to do events, you have that to do webinars, you have that to do sponsorships and things like that. And then they give you access to certain talent and certain network in that market. Thank you very much. I've spoken for an hour, 15 minutes. It is a lot of time. I will take questions if there are any now.
Oh, wow. This is very intense. Hi, Koi. You have a question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bukayo. Now, my question is for those of us who are like in your situation now, and then we want to get a job in a like a regional role where we have to talk to people who are in other countries. How then do we succeed if these people, like you mentioned, they need somebody who speaks their language or who is like them? How then do you succeed in that kind of role? Because you definitely won't be the one to do that. Yeah, how would you succeed in that kind of role?
Yeah. So very tricky. So typically, what should be that decision, and that's why I said if you ask management those business considerations when they tell you just go into that market, and they've not done this research, they've not answered those questions. When you ask management, okay, that's fine, no problem. So what are we doing here? Why are we doing this? What is this? What is that? Okay, this is the insight. This is the research we've done. Have we checked this? When you go to management with data, for example, for markets where it's tricky for you to be the first person to start, you can tell us, I'm willing to expand into other markets, but I don't think this is the market that is right, or for me to be the one to do this in this market. It's I think in my opinion, it's totally fine to say that, to be honest, because if you don't do that, well, what happen is I don't want to say they are setting you up for failure because you already have insights. That's something that could be done. The second thing that could be done would then be find people like you that has done it in that market, which is what I would do first. So I would first of all get my data for that first one, keep it somewhere. Then now go and try and not just come and tell management and say, oh, we can't do this because of this without trying. Um, so I'm a big believer in try. I'm a big believer in failing. And allow me to say failing because you learn very fast when you fail. You do something like this, it doesn't work, find another way, change it, we tweak it, and we're improving things like that. Before we know, we found something working. And that's how we've grown business right now to where we currently are. So what you want to then do is find anybody that has done what you want to do and is facing a similar problem to what you're facing. So you could be finding communities. You might look for local communities in those regions. When it comes to sales communities, um, check them on LinkedIn, check them online to find their Slack channel and things like that. Do you understand? It's something that your company can fly you there to say, you have occasional visits for market expansion. When you go there to try and pitch, try and book meetings with those people to just do knowledge sharing. What they will do is they will give you tips to be able to overcome those challenges. Do you understand? They'll give you tips and ideas of how to overcome those challenges. You don't have to relearn because the typical thing that could be said is just to say, try, you try and catch it, and that's generic. There's no need to make the same mistake that other people have made when you can learn from what other people have done. So that would be my second proposition. Find people that have faced that same problem as you, and then connect with them, ask them questions, join communities, and then use that from there. Okay? Cool. Please let me know if I
Right,
actually answered. I think it's very important.
yeah. We did. I
Okay.
get you. So leverage on the people who like have expertise or in that area already, and those guys
Exactly.
can do like the groundwork of setting up operations in that market.
Exactly. You could do that. Exactly. Or you just find people that face your exact same problem.
Okay. All right, that's fine. Thank you.
Sure. That's where partnership marketing happened. And I think I told you the solution was white labeled to an existing person in that market and product was sold. What just happened was we on the other hand was a point of contact to the person that white labeled the solution and was actually selling it, and we're responsible for that partnership. So the revenue would still count on your book. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. It does. It does.
Okay, fantastic.
Thank you.
Sure, man. Any other questions? I'm trying to check the comment section. Impact, confidence, and ease. Yes, thank you very much. That's the ICE framework. The car should run for na vested interest too. Na vested interest. Quick. That's the way it drives.
Yeah, please, does anybody have any more questions? Virtually all the questions that we have on this end has already been answered in the session.
I
does
want to
anybody,
your question before you ask me.
I didn't get that, Bukayo. What did you say?
Did you say all the questions you had have already been answered before you asked
Yeah,
me?
most of the questions noted here have already been answered.
Yeah.
You already touched on revenue. You already touched on revenue when expanding to new market. How much people need to prepare. You already mentioned that they have to do market research, right, to understand exactly what is required. You might be preparing for, let's say, 15 million, and then what you might actually need might be more than that, right? You also touched on in sometimes whatever market or whatever target audience category works for you in your own country might not be the same in the country that you're expanding to. So yeah, so virtually all of the questions have already been answered. Does anybody else on the call at the moment have any question? Okay. Thank you so much, Bukayo. This has been much more intense than I actually imagined, right? Thank you for the insight that you brought, especially from a marketing point of view. There's always so much fight between
Yes.
B2B marketers and B2B salespeople. And I loved how you touched on it, and then also how you touched on collaboration between both teams, especially on recognition and even reward. Yes, I think that's something I'd like you to touch on. So when it comes to reward for B2B salespeople, it's always very straightforward, right? But for marketers, it's not something that is so straightforward, all right? And it's something that is very common like that. So is that something that you would like to touch on before we round up?
Sure. So rewarding is always tied to tracking and measurement. So as a marketing person, you need to very, very clearly get your tracking and measurement clear. So when you're generating leads for sales, and that's why I mentioned those metrics, you need to check how many leads are you generating, how many actually convert to SQLs, how many actually turn into win deals won. If I go back to KPI, the inbound win rates. And that's why I also told you as a salesperson that you need to check your ratio of inbound versus outbound, because this is where fight is to happen. So you realize that as a salesperson, 80% of the deals you are closing or 90% are things that sales are generating, depending on the structure of your organization. Some organizations don't mind, But in my experience, I found out that most organizations still want salespeople to go out and do outbound and still be getting more leads in addition to what they're doing. So not just sitting down and waiting for what marketing will done, but the laps in quotes. So if you as a marketing person understands the inbound deal rate win, if you send 100 and 50 or 40 becomes SQL, and then 15 to 20 actually converts. There's a way you can connect it. That's why I said tracking. So for example, when you bring in a deal, the person fills a form on the website, you connect the form to your CRM. You then create a tag for every form that is filled on the website to be tagged with inbound. So that when all the deals, so when it's tagged as inbound, once that lead comes in, it goes into the CRM. When the salesperson picks up that lead that comes into the CRM, we basically, in my experience, what we do is we connect the CRM and that form to the Slack channel. And then when the person fills the form, when the prospect fills the form in terms of the inbound comes in, there's a notification on Slack tagging the required salesperson in that region to pick up that lead. We will then know when the person picks up the lead based on the time inside the CRM. And when the person when the salesperson now checks the contacts, now see that, okay, this is an actual SQL, qualifies it into an SQL. Then when it goes to SQL, remember that contact is already tagged with a hashtag, with a tag called inbound. If the salesperson now creates a deal under that using that contact, that deal is created. So at the end of the month, you can go to your CRM and check all the deals tagged inbound, and you know how much marketing contributed to the leads that were brought in via marketing. So you need to get your measurement and tracking very right. It's a lot of work on CRM and all of that things on the B2B side of it, but they help you. So when you do that, you can defend your reward and say, this is what marketing contributed to the bottom line. We generated this number of MQLs. This was the actual MQLs that were converted to SQLs. So the ratio is a very healthy ratio. You didn't just generate 100 and only 2 was given acceptance by salespeople. You get, and that's why as a marketing person, you need to get feedback from sales if they're not converting things to SQL so that you can properly qualify people yourself. Because if you are sending good people to sales, they would always qualify and close the deal. They want more money. So if you do that, you then check your inbound deal wage rate. But sales still has to be careful to make sure that they are also generating enough outbound on their end, so that marketing is not taking credit for most of what you are doing. And then people, and when I say taking credit, they are only helping with marketing investment. I like to distinct this space because marketing people too get too much in their head and think that because they generated MQLs, they contributed to sales. There's a whole lot of things that still needs to be done when something comes to SQL. There's a lot of follow-ups, there's a lot of meetings, there's a lot of negotiation, there's a lot of all of that things. So don't let it get into your head too fast as well on that part of things too. So there's that balance, but you need to track that. You need to track that. And I think that if marketing tracks well, and if sales also keep an eye on their ratio of inbound to outbound, they wouldn't particularly be dragging things with marketing because they have a healthy inbound to outbound ratio. Because what that basically tells them to manage and reward is, as a salesperson, you are actually closing the inbound leads that marketing is doing. So our investment in the marketing department is paying off because you're actually closing those deals to a healthy ratio. And you're still working on outbound. So good, we reward you. You're doing a good job. And marketing on the other side, okay, you're actually generating enough inbound that is qualifying as good opportunities, and sales is doing a very good job to close that, and you are contributing this amount of revenue. You are contributing this impact to the bottom line in terms of revenue. So you see, you can measure that. So that's it boils on measurement and tracking and figuring out how to do that very, very well. There are also other things like indirect contributions. But I always like to start with direct contributions, then you go to indirect contribution. When you do direct contribution, which is basically contribution to revenue, you can then start talking about indirect contributions like demand generation, share of voice in the market. How many people now know you? How many people are you able to understand you properly? Do you understand how much demand have you done in the market for people that makes it easy for sales to be able to close it? Because remember, if marketing is doing that, it gets easier for you to close deals because they know you, they know what you do and understand. Okay, let's give them a trial, and I know a foreign person like that, and all of that. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, deeply. And I like what you mentioned about, indirect contributions. Because a lot of times, especially in sales-driven environment, the focus is always so how much of that became revenue, right? So I really love that you touched on that. And another thing that I picked from this session is the part where you talked about localization in terms of the company content. When you're talking to a company that's another nationality or speaks another language, even if they speak English fluently, it always pays to go that extra mile of converting it to the language that they speak and then finding a local person to help you read for coherence. That's like one tip that I've never really paid attention to, and an important one I'll be taking out of this session. Yeah, thank you so much, Bukayo. This has been an intense session. This is one session that I will go back to listen to over and over again with my team members. Yeah, been, it's been very intense. We very much appreciate the time that you've chosen to spend with us here. And thank you for investing this knowledge.
Thank you so much for having me. The pleasure is
Can't
mine.
wait
Sorry, I didn't get
yeah,
that.
we have to have your slides because we need
Oh,
to
yeah. I had to,
dig.
in fact, even the slides, I had to rush it because, man,
No problem. No problem so much.
yeah.
Please have a lovely evening.
And you too. Thank you so much, guys. Great connecting with you.
For joining us. Enjoy the rest of your evening and have a very good rest of the week. Bye, everyone.
Maybe too.
All right. Good night, guys. Bye.
Good night, Koi. Good night, Ty. Good night, everyone.